Hi, I'm Andy White, and we're here with Hanna Kryszewska and Paul Davis. Hanna, Paul, you recently wrote a new book that isn't actually out yet. What's the title of the book? What's it about?
Well, the title of the book is The Company Words Keep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quote from Firth, and it's about lexical chunking.
Okay.
And the full quote is, "We shall know a word by the company words keep."
Okay.
And it's about a lexical approach, but we couldn't find a title that wasn't taken, like lexical approach, lexical syllabuses. So it's about lexis.
Can we talk a little bit, first of all, about chunking or the lexical approach? Both of those. What is that exactly?
Okay, so basically when you look at the brain of a native speaker, if metaphorically of course, it's full of little building blocks of various sizes, which are chunks of language.
Okay.
And in order to communicate, we just quickly retrieve these chunks. Now when we teach language, we kind of the traditional classroom tends to look at single words and perhaps occasional collocation, and then ties in grammar to go with the vocabulary, whereas really it should be chunk, 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 chunk.
Okay,
and
so big piece.
And we want to promote a more lexical approach in teaching language and perhaps taking a shortcut in quicker acquisition and fluency in using the target language.
Okay. So as an example, if you take something like look or forward, and you wouldn't necessarily teach I look forward to seeing you separately or even analyze the grammar in that. It would just be one big piece altogether. Okay. And the book itself, is it a bit of theory and a bit of practical activities, or is it more practical activities, boom, boom, boom?
It's published by Delta, but they have it, and it's quite a nice format. The Delta books are, you have section A, which is theory, and you can skip it, but it's quite nice for some people. Section B is 5 chapters of practical activities, how to chunk with the course book, how to use the web for chunking, to the lexical approach. And the last section is it's called research, and it's it's got a list of websites, small articles, the way forward that you can take the theory, having done the practice.
Let's talk about the 5 chapters in the middle that a lot of teachers are really interested in. So those are practical activities then. And what kind of activities do you have in there?
Well, it's a resource book to start with, so it's not photocopyable material like some resource books are, but it's just ideas, so the teacher can just do the activity as it's been described, or can modify, adapt. And the 5 chapters are devoted to learner awareness and learner training. They are devoted to how to combine the use of the course book with lexical chunking, how to run activities which are sort of general chunking and becoming more of chunks and practicing chunking, storing chunks, retrieving chunks, using various resources online, and using authentic materials.
Yeah. So the first 3 chapters would be so if you're doing an exam, if you're doing a course book, if you're doing a beginner's course, advanced course, getting them used to chunking, getting them used to lexis, and reversing the process. So lexis first, then the grammar, then the speaking activities. So the last 2 chapters, chapters 4 and 5, are about so 4 is about going to the environment, texts, advertisements, films, songs, looking at chunking in real life, poems. And chapter 5 is going straight to the web resources, and looking at the original material, the original research, using it in the classroom, using Google to choose courses, using to teach chunks and so on and so forth. So going back to the resources. And chapter 5, we've got, at the end of section C, we've got a massive list of websites which we've used to teach chunks, which is we've enjoyed doing, and the students have enjoyed it.
It sounds like it's really adaptable then to a lot of situations, and it's not a course. It's not a course book. It's you use these bits. Yeah,
it's a recipe book.
Okay.
You know, so you could, but there is, you know, if you were writing an assignment for your, you know, diploma, there is a serious bit at the beginning that you that theory, and if you're into classroom research or researching or action research, there is section C which would lead you on to do what you were interested in. But the main middle of the book is 5 chapters, recipes for beginners, for higher levels, to get them using chunks.
It sounds really useful, and it sounds like there's something for everybody. Back to a little bit of the lexical approach. It's relatively new in the history of English language teaching, or I would say the only thing that's really newer is dogma, although I may be wrong there. So it started with Michael Lewis, and I think there are a few interesting things, if I may. One of the things that, and I don't know if it was Michael Lewis who actually said this, but if you go on holiday to a foreign country, you don't bring a grammar book, you bring a dictionary. Yeah, and that language is grammaticalized lexis, not lexicalized grammar. Some of the things that have been said about the lexical approach, and I myself am a really big fan as well. It makes perfect sense.
Well, the first time I went to Spain, I remember I learned puede darme una.
And what is that?
Please may I have? And I went to bar and I said, puede darme una. And the grammar got me nowhere, and I had to rush back, get my dictionary, Café con leche, and learn the chunk. And that's what it's about, really. A lot of the course books are backwards, or back to front. You know, they teach the grammar structure and then the lexis. We're proposing, still using maybe the same book, because it's a recipe book, but is chunks first. After this interview, I'm going to have, now, I think this is intuitively how your brain works. Beer, the word, but then the word is useless on its own. Chunk, nice cold beer. That's how your brain works. You get the chunk, nice cold beer. Then you add the grammar. I'm going to have a nice cold beer after this.
Oh, very well illustrated. Okay.
Now, can we just talk about beginners? Just for a moment, because I think it's really important. There's lots of activities for training or for raising awareness right from beginners, which can be used at high levels. But so, if a learner writes the word taxi, they don't know anything. You know, so right at the very beginning, everybody knows the word taxi, so they have to make a chunk. You know, take a taxi, or the film Taxi Driver. When they write it down, they write taxi driver, take a taxi. Never a single word. And going back to the course book, there's lots of lists of single words at the end of the unit, and they're useless.
No context, no friends, no...
And very often some single word has got so many different meanings, and it acquires meanings in a chunk. I mean, earlier you were talking about the word forward, so whereas I'm looking forward, full forward, forward thinker, straightforward. There are so many different chunks with one, and they're stored separately. They are not made up the moment you need them. You don't make them up. You just retrieve them, and that's very important. Or another good example would be very many students at low level learn the word take, it, I, but they don't know the chunk. I take it, meaning I understand. And it's a separate chunk.
A simple exercise from the book, using the course book again, is just give out the vocabulary list from the end of each unit, and the learners just have to make a chunk. So if the word is garden, they have to say garden path, water the garden, you know. And that's just a way of getting them bit by bit at very low levels in this case, but it works exactly the same technique would work at high level. Accustomed to chunks, accustomed to using chunks.
Okay, and we'll wrap it up then here. This has been really useful for me and hopefully the viewers as well. The title of the book is
The Company Words Keep.
The Company Words Keep.
Delta.
Okay, and from Delta Publishing.
In the New Teachers Resource Series.
It's a fabulous resource series. So you've got good company there as well. And when can you get your hot little hands on it?
It's, well, by the time this interview is on the, you see it, it will be out.
Okay, all right. Super. Sure. Thanks a lot, Hania. Thanks a lot, Paul.
And thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for watching and buy the book.